Hi there. So this far we have covered a lot of things from Postman, but we have not started writing test cases. And as a tester, that's the most important thing for us. Okay. So we are going to write the most important test case first, and that is going to be JSON schema, right? So now what is that? So when you send the you get the response back, and what you see is the data. It could be in the XML format, it could be in the JSON format. So we are going to target data in the JSON format in this video. Okay. So when you get the response back, it is in a specific format, right? So you see the key value pair, right? And in some keys you see the string values, in other keys you see the integer value, and you also see boolean, you see null, you see undefined, all those things, right? So we have to test that. We have to test all of it. So whenever you get the response back, at a minimum, there are two things that you have to test. One is the data type of each key, right? And second, the data that is being stored into that key. Okay, not just the data. You also have to test the schema of the object that is being returned to you. Okay, so there is one video that I've created on demystify API black box. I'll post the link of it because therein I've talked about model, and model returns you this JSON document, right, which you see in your response, and you have to test each and every property of that document, because while creating the model, and I'll quickly show you in my code. So this is the animal model, and while creating the model, I've applied these validations. So as a tester, we have done this kind of testing many times, right? Whenever you see, let's say, an age field, you check for the minimum value, also check for the maximum value, right? You also enter in the negative numbers and so on. So those are all validations. So when we build the APIs, there also we have the server side validations. So we have to test that. Also look at this. So this name is of data type string, right? So which means that, let's say, when I'm posting a record into uh, the table animal with the help of this API, right? I should be passing the string data. I should not be passing the number data, right? And so on. So these are all the validations. Then you could see that on this particular uh, type, right? Um, I have applied one more validation which says that, because the type could be what, herbivore, type of an animal could be what, herbivorous, carnivorous, right? So what I've done is I've applied this regular expression to ensure that ivorous is there at the end, right? And I've ensured that the minimum length is uh, 3 and maximum length is 25. Okay, so these are all the validations that we have to test, right? We also have to test the data types and all, right? So with the help of JSON schema, we can do that easily, right? You don't need to write separate test case to all that. Just write one good extended JSON schema, and that would do the job. Okay, so what do you have to do? What are the steps involved into that? So you have to create the JSON schema first. Okay, and then you have to write this test case, and that is it. pm.response to have JSON schema and this. And in one test case, you can test everything related to your model except the data. Okay, so just one more thing before we move on. So JSON schema is nothing. It's a tool. It's a vocabulary to validate your JSON document. And we'll see what all validation we can apply in a while. And this far we have released 9 drafts for JSON schema. The current one is 2009-09. Okay, so quickly let's jump on to Postman and check that out. So this is my collection that I'm going to use in this example, in this video, and this is the request that I have. So I send that request and I see this response, right? So we have to do is, we have to generate the schema. So I'll give you a reference of one site which is app.quicktype.io. All you have to do is come here, make sure that JSON schema is selected here, and here you see JSON. Just paste your content, okay, and a default schema is generated for you. Okay, now let's take a copy of that, okay, and come to your test cases, and let's say, let me use this page now. So let's say let schema equal to, paste that, okay. Just do one thing. So take this line out. Currently this is creating problem, so just take this out, okay, and your schema is created. And now all you have to do is pm.test. Through this you can write your test case. You have to provide two arguments. First is the name of your test case. So what we are doing is validating schema, okay, and second is your callback function. This is how we write callback function, and here we are going to say pm dot response dot to dot have JSON schema, and just pass in the schema variable. Okay, let's save that and hit the send button. Check that in our response. So a test case is passing. Now let's examine what is there inside this schema. So I go to that site and see it tells us, so they are ID, name, type, span, and lifespan. These are the 5 property keys that we see in an object. Okay, so to start with, what it says is, check this, and it says the type is array. Great, so it's checking that the first thing that we should get in our response is an array. Okay, then it moves inside and say, okay, inside array every type is an object. So as you see, it's an object, and it is mentioning that additional properties are false. So in your response tomorrow, if one more property is added, right, so it's saying that no additional properties, and these are the required properties. So if tomorrow one more property is uh, and we'll see that. So you say here, so you expect one more property but that is not available, then it will error out, and we'll see that. But let's move on to the inside the object. What do we have inside the objects? We have properties. Okay, so what all properties we have? We have ID, whose type is integer. Same way, name type is string. So we are checking the data type, right? Now the let's check the required property once. So we say there is one more property. Let's assume that we are expecting, in case of animal, let's say legs, and type integer. Okay, and we are expecting it to be mandatory. Okay, so we say legs should be there in the response. Let's save that, and as you know, this property is not available in the response currently. So it clearly says that legs should have been there, but it's not there. Should have required property legs, right? So you get the point. So this way you can ensure that no additional or no properties are missing from your response. Okay, so let me take this out. Okay, so this is my schema. Let me save that. So this is the use of required. What else can you do? Let's check that out whether this is working. So type, let's make it string. Okay, so this way you're going to check the data type. So you have to play with that. Now you clearly see that it should be string, but it is not. Okay, so this is how you're going to check the data types. Now The next step is, let's take it to the next level. Okay, and for that the site that you require to go through is this. Okay, so let's say now you are working on the number data type, right? So let me open this, and in the numeric type there are four more types available. Okay, so integer type is used for integer numbers and not the whole numbers. Okay, so if you have something like this in your response, change the type to number. Okay, then you also have the option to test for if there is a requirement that it has to, a number has to be a multiple of, let's say, 100, 15, 20, whatever. So you can use multiple of. In our case, there was a requirement of minimum and maximum, right? So that's what we are going to do. So we are going to say a type is, so in our case, this particular example, we say minimum is 1. Okay, so this is how we are going to extend that. And id, is there any maximum? So we can also define the maximum. All we have to do is maximum is, let's say, 10,000. Okay, in case of string, let's check out what are the validations we have. Okay, so if we go to our TTO, right, I showed that to you in my code here, right? And this is the swagger documentation of the same. So let me pick the name type, and the max length is 25, min length is 3. Let's implement that in Postman. So how can we add the min length and max length? This is of type string. So what do we have to do? We have to go to this site, okay, and check out for what other things can we add for string. Where is string? Yeah, so click on that, open it, and then you see the length properties here, min length and max length. That's what we want in our case. So we come here and add these two properties. Okay, and what is our requirement? So minimum 3, maximum 25. Let's change it to this. Minimum uh, max is 25, min is 3. Okay, so that's how you're going to update that. So in case of type as well, we have the min and max length properties. I guess its min length is 5 and max length is 25. But in type there is one more thing that we have to do, and that is regular expression. Okay, and for that, what do we have to do? So let's head back to the site again, and here's the regular expression. So what do we have to use for that? We have to use pattern. Okay, so what is going to be our pattern? Let's come here. So our pattern is going to be, in case of type, this is our pattern, right? So this is going to be our pattern, and this is going to be our pattern. All right, so there are a few more things which you can see here. Let's go there. So you can do few things with objects, arrays, boolean, null. All right, uh, there are also patterns available for your yeah, see, built-in pattern for date, time, for email, for host name, for IPs. All these patterns are available in here. Okay, so make use of that. Write extensible JSON schema, and that ways, in just in one test case, you will ensure that you have tested the structure of your model. All right, so get in touch with your developer, understand the structure of your model, what all validations are applied, and write up your JSON schema accordingly. Okay, let me save this and run our test case one more time. It's passing. Now make sure that it is failing. So what we say is ivorus, let's add uh, dt in front of it, save that, send it again, and it's failing because what is expected, dtivorous, it's not there in the response. Check the body, in the response you only have this. Okay, so that ways you can check all your validations. All right, let me change it back, and let's say the minimum length is, in case of type, let's say it's we are saying 15, right? Let's run our test case and see if anything is failing. So yeah, it is failing. Okay, because, so what did we change? We changed the type minimum length, right? Go to the body and check out the type thing. 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10. So they are only 10 and we expected it to be minimum 15, and hence it was failing. Okay, so this way you can do thorough testing of your model. Okay, so that's about JSON schema. Now let's open a website. Postman, I wanted to show you something. Postman, and click on the script reference and then test script example and scroll down, so you would see that these are all the deprecated options. And I would like to show you one more. Tiny validator tv4. Oh, this is annoying. So tiny, yeah, so you could see that this is already deprecated. But if you go into Postman, right, so let me collapse that, and this is the syntax that I've used. All right, but if I scroll down to the snippet list and click on this last icon, use tiny validator. All right, so this is another way you can validate the JSON schema. So all you have to do is, this is what you want, schema is valid, and here you will say this is what, this is pm dot response dot json, and then we are passing the schema. So let us run that, and now this is your test, which is great. So what do we have? The slides. So we have already talked about this quick type, and we have also talked about the schema thing. Thank you so much. It's a long video. Thank you. Bye bye.